I now give the floor to the representative of Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations on assuming your presidency for the month of October. I would like to convey Ethiopia's best wishes in the discharge of your responsibilities. I also thank our Secretary General. Mr. President, I don't want to hide my surprise in the convening of this meeting of the Security Council. We find it incomprehensible for this august body to discuss the decision of a sovereign state exercised within the domain of international law and sovereign prerogative. There have been several instances where governments had expelled UN staff and other diplomatic envoys for so many disclosed and undisclosed reasons. Did the Council ever meet to vindicate such a decision? Not to the best of our recollection. Mr. President, we truly hoped Council members would have the insight to leave this matter to the government, Ethiopia, and the United Nations. At the outset, I would like to register our position that the government of Ethiopia is not under any legal obligation to provide justifications or explanation for its decisions. Excellencies, we are obliged to make reference to the basic norms of the United Nations and its humanitarian operations. The General Assembly resolution on guiding principles for humanitarian assistance, 46/182, provides the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and national unity of states must be fully respected in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations. The most fundamental element of the sovereignty of the state has to do with their prerogative to determine who enters, remains in, exists in their territory. When we appeal for support and work with the UN or other humanitarian operators, we have not forgone this fundamental right. Therefore, the government will continue exercising its due right and responsibility on monitoring and screening all humanitarian operators in Ethiopia. Any suggestion to the contrary is unacceptable. As to the legality of the decision, leaving the details aside, the UN itself can be quoted for arguing decisions of persona non grata apply to the UN as well. Mr. President, when it comes to the obligation of UN staff, the rules are unequivocal. Article 101, paragraph 3 of the UN Charter provides all staff members employed by the United Nations must have the highest standards of efficiency, competence, and integrity. In the context of humanitarian operations, integrity entails adhering to principles of neutrality, impartiality, humanity, and independence. It also requires respect for the laws and police power of the host state. Furthermore, they must respect the Code of Conduct of UN, which, among others, provides the following. First, UN staff shall neither seek nor accept instruction from any government or from any other source external to the organization. Second, staff members shall not use their office or knowledge gained from their official functions for private gain, financial or otherwise, or for the private gain of any third party, including family, friends, and those they favor. Third, staff members shall not communicate to any government, entity, person, or any other sources any information known to them by reason of their official position. These cardinal principles, for the safeguard of which UN staff enter a solemn oath and swear on their conscience, mean that in the presence of contradicting views, competing interests, political pressures, and all forms of temptation, the UN staff will remain neutral. In the presence of deceit, coercion, and vested interest, they will preserve their independence. And in the existence of consideration that may appear to be reasonable basis for decision, UN staff will be guided by humanity only. The UN staff, Ethiopia expelled, sidelined their oaths, the rules of professional conduct, and the principles of humanitarian assistance. Mr. President, let me cite few examples among the multitude of transgressions that we selected with great care and caution. Needless to say, the misconduct of few individuals doesn't speak to the professional and able team of the UN in Ethiopia or anywhere else. Rather, it speaks of the serious ethical dilemma that existed in the humanitarian operation in Ethiopia for the past 11 months. These individuals executed the conspiracy created by TPLF and its member to generate an image of extreme casualty that warrants quote-unquote humanitarian intervention and rescues the criminal group. To use their own words, they were looking to create a Darfur-like situation. They suddenly and overnight created 1 million victims of health disaster, while OCHA country office reports 2.8 million people that need emergency health assistance. The main OCHA office was made to report 3.8 million, only because that level of inflation of misery was needed to elevate the crisis to level 3. They categorized the situation in Tigray under IPC 5, based on data collected from a region of 6 million population by a single FAO staff and interpreted by 2 UN staff that are Ethiopian and open TPLF supporters based in Rome. They assisted in fabrication of false allegations submitted to the UN Security Council as a white paper. The white paper contained unfounded allegations, including the use of hunger as a weapon, and preferred the need to apply Resolution 2417/18. The former head of OCHA was made to report to this council 152 Ethiopians died due to food shortage, while such incident had never occurred. They made up the data and went to the extent of disinforming this global security body. About 2 weeks ago, they reported 12 individuals died of hunger in an IDP camp, while the organization running the IDP camp, an internal organization itself, came out and stated the allegations are simply false. They implored UN agencies to conduct investigations outside of their mandate to meet the instruction of TPLF to generate exhibits matching the false allegation released on medias and to supposedly substantiate a case before the ICC. They didn't even show mercy to victims of gender-based violence. First, in violation of the protection of protocols of safe houses for victims of gender-based violence, they invited TPLF armed men and militia to the safe houses. In addition, they exposed the safe house before an international media and invited interviewers and interrogators to safe houses to intimidate victims and elicit testimonies. This, Mr. President, is happening in a city where close to 13,000 detainees and prisoners were released with absolute impunity, and thousands of armed youths are roaming in the streets, already creating terror on residents. These individuals recorded a UN staff meeting and gave a copy to TPLF for the sake of providing it with material it could use to back its false allegations. These individuals openly celebrated and make other UN staff cheer the so-called victory of TPLF and the withdrawal of the National Defense Forces from Tigray. They openly conducted activism in support of TPLF, a group proscribed as terrorists, and make political statements that instigate violence and inflame the conscience of the Ethiopian public. They assisted siphoning food, medicine, communication equipment, all other essential supplies and equipment and transfer to TPLF. Right before their expulsion, they were facilitating the deportation of ethnically segregated group of Ethiopian migrants from Saudi Arabia and their resettlement in third country in Africa for training and preparation before they join combat with TPLF. In effect, a parallel UN operation that completely sidelined the UN country office was created. Apart from the selfish interest of individuals, we have evidences that the entire endeavor is created by a higher and more sophisticated motivation that seeks to undermine the Ethiopian state and rescue the TPLF. Ethiopia deeply resents this experience. Mr. President, expulsion was not our primary course of action. In multiple occasions, we explained our concern to UN officials. On July 8, 2021, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Ethiopia wrote a letter to the UN Secretariat explaining in great details the misconducts of the UN staff that require corrective measures. We also summoned some individuals and warned them to halt their misconduct. Nevertheless, the transgression continued unabated. Mr. President, we believe the UN agencies and their honorable role are undermined by these few individuals. Our request from the United Nations is, first, to deploy new staff that are aware of and will adhere to their professional code of conduct. Overwhelming majority of UN staff fulfill this requirement and would distance themselves from political mercenarism. The government of Ethiopia stands ready to assist expeditious deployment of the replacement. More importantly, we request the UN to review all the reports, statements, and assessments that were produced on the situation in Ethiopia in the past year. These reports and data and information they contain must be verified. This audit is necessary for us to build and sustain trust and advance the exemplary cooperation between the Ethiopian government and the United Nations. Mr. President, the United Nations is an invaluable development and humanitarian partner for Ethiopia for many years. I want to underscore the great values we attach to the support of our organization during this difficult time. We also believe majority of the UN staff we have the privilege of working with have the requisite integrity and decency. Mr. President, I would like to reassure this Council the new Ethiopian government established with the popular will and mandate of the Ethiopian people to herald peace and prosperity stands ready to work with the international community to address long-standing and current challenges. We welcome and value initiative by leaders of our region, the African Union, and the support of the Secretary General Antonio Guterres toward sustaining peace and stability in Ethiopia. We assure you that we will facilitate the visa requests. No one should doubt the Ethiopian tradition of hospitality. What we ask is respect, dignity, and honesty, open and candid discussion. We will, as we did in the past, we will always stretch our hands to all those who treat us with dignity and equality. That is indeed the story of an Ethiopian life since the time of the League of Nations. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Ethiopia for his statement and invite the Secretary General of the United Nations to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If there is anything I have cherished during all this period, is to maintain a very effective and operational relationship with the government of Ethiopia and with its Prime Minister, to the effect that I had many criticisms in the global media about that, accusing me of being biased in favor of the Ethiopian government. So it is with total, I would say, in a spirit of complete easiness, that I would like to ask you one thing, Mr. Ambassador. If there is any written document provided by the Ethiopian government to any UN institution about any of the 8 members of the UN that were expelled, I would like to receive a copy of that document because I have not had any knowledge of any of them. And it would be very useful for me to detect if documents are given to the UN and not given to my knowledge. Then I have to investigate what has happened in my organization. So I ask you, please, Mr. Ambassador, to provide me as a copy of any of the written documents written by the government of Ethiopia about any of the 8 that were expelled by Ethiopia in this regard. And I would recall that twice I told the Prime Minister that if there were concerns about lack of, I'd say, lack of impartiality of the UN staff, that I asked him, please send me those situations for me to be able to investigate. Twice I asked it to the Prime Minister. Until now, I had no response to these requests. And so, for us, the question is very simple. We believe that Ethiopia has not the right to expel these 8 members of the UN. We believe Ethiopia is violating international law in doing so. And we are ready to cooperate with the government of Ethiopia in relation to any situation in which the government of Ethiopia feels that any member of the UN is not behaving in total impartiality, in total independence, as humanitarian law prescribes and humanitarian principles establish. I want to tell you, Mr. Ambassador, we want to cooperate with the government of Ethiopia because we have only one agenda in Ethiopia, and that agenda is the people of Ethiopia. Tigrayans, Amarans, Afaris, Somalis, the people of Ethiopia. The people of Ethiopia is suffering. We have no other interest but to help stop that suffering. Thank you very much.
I thank the Secretary General for his further clarification. The representative of Ethiopia has asked for the floor to make a further statement. I give him the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Secretary General, I hear you loud and clear. I fully understand and realize the support you have given to our people and my government as well. We know where your heart is. You have approached our issue with candidness, with candor, and we highly respect that. As to the asks, I will definitely communicate to the appropriate authorities, and we will, of course, expeditiously, and as I have made it clear in my statement, this is an issue that has to be dealt between Ethiopia and the United Nations. Whatever document that will be available will be submitted to your office, Your Excellency. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Ethiopia for his statement.